It's on. Brilliant. So Steph has said that the recording has started, so I will begin. So welcome everybody to this interactive creative writing workshop that's happening as part of World Childless Week this year, creative writing as part of your Plan B. And this is going to be an interactive workshop. So please, if you feel like you'd like to write anything during the workshop, please do, on the computer, on your phone, on paper, on the back of an envelope, whatever you've got to hand, please write whatever you feel like writing, whether it's in response to the prompts or something else. Please feel free to share your writing in the chat if you'd like to, but there's absolutely no pressure. It's also completely fine to keep that writing to yourself. And if you're watching this on YouTube, obviously you won't be able to share your writing live in the chat, but you'd be very welcome to email me anything that you've written during the session. I'd be very happy to read it. I'd love to read it, and I'll share my email address later. And I'm going to talk for a little bit. This is how today's going to work. I'm going to talk for a little bit about how writing became a really vital part of my Plan B after childlessness, and then we're going to kick straight in with some practical activities. So I have written for as long as I knew how to write. So as a child, I wrote poetry, I wrote plays, which I made my friends and my brother and various other people participate in, sometimes not always, in my brother's case, entirely enthusiastically. And I wrote a novel when I was 13, which was pretty dreadful. I've still got a copy of it, and every now and again I open it, go, oh, and then I close it again. But in 2018, I decided that it was time to really dig into writing in a big way. And so I signed up to a two-year creative writing course in Brighton, which is near where I live. And it became the absolute highlight of my week. It was an afternoon once a week. And like I said, it became the absolute highlight of my week. It was just the best day of my week. And it was on a Monday, which was such a good day to start it. And while I was on that course, I started writing 3 novels, and one of which is actually nearly ready to be sent out to agents. So that's exciting. Now I've got 7 or 8 on the go. Novel writing has just become a vital part of my life. I write every day, and it's absolutely the highlight. And most people think that, we start writing early in life, and we start writing novels when we're in our 20s. But there are many, many women in particular, and probably men as well, who've started writing later in life, in their 40s, 50s or 60s, and become prize-winning and well-known writers, become self-published writers. Anywhere on the spectrum is absolutely brilliant. And I can see some people are going in the chat saying what they write at the moment, and that's really lovely. So do feel free to share how writing is part of your life, if at all. And that can go from journaling through to creative writing, through to writing for work, because it's all writing and it's all important. So that's how writing became part of my life. There are very many different routes to writing, so there's no reason to do a course unless you want to. The minute you start writing, you're a writer, and you don't have to spend any money on it at all, because like I say, we've probably all got a load of old envelopes kicking around the house that we can write on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my invitation to you today. So my invitation to you today is to take part in the activities that I'm going to present, but there's an equally big invitation out there to ignore the activities that I'm going to present and to just watch and listen and soak it up and write later on, or to write something completely different, whatever you feel like writing. So the important thing is to do this workshop in a way that feels safe and comfortable for you, but also to make it feel safe and comfortable for others, to respect the fact that we can all feel really sensitive about our writing. So if someone shares something in the chat that's their writing, to only comment on what you notice about it, rather than an evaluation comment like that's really good or that's terrible. Not that I think any of you would say that's terrible, but yeah, just to comment on what you notice rather than to evaluate the writing. And I would ask everyone to please refrain from writing anything in the chat. that may be harmful about any aspect of our humanness: gender, sexuality, ethnicity, disability or health status, or anything else. I just want everyone to feel safe and to enjoy what we're going to do today. So let's get started with a writing warm-up. So the name of my creative writing workshop business is Seed Writing. So very much my logo, which I'm going to share in a minute on the slideshow, is we plant the seed and you make it grow. And that's directly feeding into our warm-up, which is going to use the metaphor as a seed or a plant to describe our writing self. So I'm just going to invite you to think for a moment about your writing self, the aspect of you that is or would like to be a writer, and to describe it as if it were a stage in the growth cycle of a plant. I'm going to share my screen just so you've got a bit more information about this. And you can see the prompts coming up on the screen. And you can see my logo. So, first thing I'd like you to think about, is your writing self still a seed? If your writing self, and you can start writing at any point during this exercise, if your writing self is still a seed, is it in a colourful packet, an old envelope, in the ground, or in a pot, neglected at the back of the shed, or in a drawer? If your writing self is a seedling, how many leaves has it got, and what do they look like? Is your writing self best represented by a flower or by a shrub? And if so, what sort is it? A tiny alpine plant, a tall rose, or hollyhock, or anything in between? Is it a fruit or a vegetable? Is it a sapling or a tall tree? Is your writing self growing well, or does it need some support? So I'm just going to read through those prompts again. Is it still a seed? Where is the seed? And again, you can start writing at any time. Where is the seed? In a colourful packet, an old envelope, in the ground or in a pot, neglected at the back of a shed or in a drawer? Is it a seedling? How many leaves has it got? And what do they look like? Is your writing self a flower or a shrub? What sort is it? A tiny alpine plant, a tall rose, a hollyhock, or anything in between? Is it a fruit or a vegetable? A sapling or a tall tree? Is your writing self growing well, or does it need some support? So please take 3 minutes now to describe your writing self, using the metaphor of stages of growth of a plant if you'd like to, or any other metaphor that feels right for you. I'm just going to get my phone to help me time. So we're going to go until 4:45, and at any point you're very welcome to share any of this in the chat or to ask a question. So at any point, you can share anything in the chat or ask me a question. Okay, so we're just going to bring this first exercise to a close. Feel free to keep writing this at a later part in the workshop. And thanks to everybody who's posting things in the chat. That's absolutely lovely. So the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is to think about a supportive figure. And we'll come more onto this later on. But I'm going to ask you to imagine, I'm just going to get back to my screen to move us on to the next slide. So bear with me for a second while I do that. So I'd like you to imagine in your mind's eye and to write down the name of an animal or a mythical being, a colour, and an object. Now, you don't have to stick entirely to this description. I do love a rule breaker. So you can write down 3 completely different things if you'd like to. But fundamentally, if you write down 3 things, and the invitation is that they would be an animal or a mythical being, a colour, and an object, that would be great. So for this part of the workshop, I'm just going to give you 2 minutes to write those things. Great, someone's already done it. That's amazing. Thank you very much. So you just need to pop those in the chat. You've just got 2 minutes to do that. So we're going to go until 4:49 in my time zone. And again, you can write them in the chat if you'd like to, or you can just keep them to yourself. I'm just going to go back and read some of the descriptions that people have put in of their writing self as a stage of growth in plant life. There's some lovely things in the chat. Thank you. These suggestions that are coming in now, the animal or the mythical being, the colour and the object, are absolutely brilliant. And what it's saying to me is how unique and diverse all of us are. Absolutely wonderful. No 2 are the same. That's really lovely. Thank you. I'm just going to get ready to move on to the next exercise, but obviously please feel free to keep writing in the chat if anything comes to mind. So, as writers, what can we write? Well, we can write anything. We can write novels, such as those by Stella Duffy and Annie Kirby. We can be a memoirist or a life writer, like Jessica Hepburn. We can be a poet, like Lauren Carter, or a songwriter, like Chiara Berardelli, or a playwright, like Robert Nurdin. We can write books of guidance for other childless people, like Yvonne John has done. And there are many, many more as well. I'm just going to share something in the chat, which is a list of books that Jodie Day shared on her website. It's the list of books that are suitable for Christmas, but books are for every time of year, not just for Christmas. So you're going to bear with me while I find that link and pop it in the chat. You might also be able to see it on my screen, but I'm not quite sure whether I'm still sharing it or not. I don't think I am. So I think I paused my screen sharing so that I can share this with you. But yeah, these are books that are recommended for Christmas. But as I say, books are for any time of year. Oh, thanks, Steph. Tell me I'm still sharing. That's brilliant. And there are lots of other things that we can write to, as well as the list that I've just given. But today we're going to focus on the broad category of fiction, focusing in particular on the intersection between fiction and poetry and what can be in between those two genres. Fiction often refers, as many of you will know, to short stories or novels, but poetry is also fictional, although some novels are written in the forms of poems, and I think some people have done life writing in the form of poetry as well. So there is an intersection. But like I said before, if you feel drawn to writing something else, please feel free to ignore all the prompts and just use the time to write whatever it is that you're drawn to. So thinking about fiction, which is my particular favourite, writing fiction generally means considering four things: character, action or plot, time, and setting or settings. And I'm going to invite you to engage in one or more of those aspects today, using this picture by Gwen John as a prompt. So take a look at this painting, which is probably about 100 years old. See what aspects of it you're drawn to. Have a really good look, all the way from the top of the painting right down to the bottom, including what might be in the corners of the painting. Have a look at the people. Have a look at the objects. And I'm going to invite you to write for 10 minutes based on this painting, beginning with the words, if you want to: I can see, I feel, I hope, I wonder, I ask or I say, I remember. So you can use any one of those to start off your sentences, or write something completely different. You can write it from the perspective of a character in the picture, or a character who's not in the picture but is in the room. You can write it as yourself, or you could write it as a character who's observing this painting in a gallery. There's lots of different starting points and perspectives you could take. And of course, when we think about writing about feelings, feelings can be emotional, but they can also be sensory, such as the touch of fabric against skin, the sight, sound, or feel of the weather or the season, the temperature, or the amount of light available. All these can be metaphors for the internal state or states of the characters in a story. So there's lots of different ways we could work with this. I was going to invite you to work whichever one feels right for you. And again, I'm going to put some of the prompts in the chat so that you can have a look at them. Right, I'm just going back to the chat. But yes, you can give you 10 minutes to do this. You're going to start now and go until just after 5 o'clock. So please feel free to start writing whenever you want to. And again, share anything that you write in the chat. And I'm just going to pop the prompts in. If you've got any questions or any comments, or you're not sure, you probably won't be the only one. So please do put something in the chat and share that with me. So we're halfway through our 10 minutes. So another 5 minutes to write about this painting in whatever way feels right for you. Thanks to all who are beginning to pop things in the chat. That's brilliant. The great thing about writing is there's no way that you can get it wrong, because if you wrote it, then it's perfect. So no matter if you've written something completely different to what somebody else has written, what you've written is perfect. It's the perfect response to the painting. So we've just got a couple of minutes left. So just beginning to finish off whatever you're writing at the moment. So just finishing the sentence or the part of the writing that you're on, if you haven't already. Oh, I'm really looking forward to reading these in a minute. There's some lovely stuff going on in the chat, so thank you very much. And I think one of the things I'm trying to do in today's workshop is introduce you to lots of different ways that we can get inspiration for our writing. So we can think about ourselves, we can use ourselves as inspiration, what's happening inside us, what's happening around us, what's happening with people we know, anything that's happening in our lives. We can use images as inspiration. One of the key things that inspired me with the novel that's closest to completion was a film, actually. It was a scene in a film. It was a film about Shakespeare, and a lot of it was about Shakespeare's wife and daughter. And I was so inspired by the fact that Shakespeare is arguably one of the most well-known writers in the world, but his wife and daughter, certainly his wife, couldn't really write at all. And I took that idea of a character who really wanted to be able to read and write but couldn't, and that's how the novel began. So images or scenes can be really exciting ways in, but there's lots of other ways that we can be inspired into writing as well. And what I'm going to ask us to think about now is getting inspiration from other people's writing and using somebody else's piece of writing as a model for our own writing, taking what we like about it or taking the format of it and using it as inspiration for our own writing. And the piece of writing that I'm going to share with you in a minute is an ode. It's an ode to hunger. And I find hunger a really interesting idea because it's something that we feel often, physical hunger, but we can also be hungry for experiences. It's a wonderful metaphor as well as being an actual thing that we experience, and food means so much more than just food in itself. So I'm going to share a poem that's called An Ode to Hunger. What I'm going to invite you to think about with this poem is writing an ode to yourself. This could be, I appreciate, quite a challenging thing to do. I think one of the things that comes with us, can often come along being childless, is losing confidence in ourselves or having painfully low self-esteem. And it might be hard for us to write an ode to ourselves. And I'm just going to share in the chat a link which might be helpful, which is a list of strengths, because sometimes we need to look at strengths to realize that we've got those strengths, basically. So to write an ode to ourselves about our strengths, about who we are as a person, can be a really difficult thing to do, which is why, again, in every part of this workshop, do what feels right for you. If it doesn't feel right for you, please don't do it. But to help you with this ode, I have shared a list of strengths. So I'm just going to go back to my slideshow, to my next slide, which is the poem An Ode to Hunger, which I'm also going to read out. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen. Bear with me while I just get on my way back to my slideshow. And we can see the poem An Ode to Hunger, which I, again, will also read out. So, Ode to Hunger by Susan McEwen. Praise spam, fried with fish sauce and sugar, jackfruit, 25 pounds of it carved on newspaper, latex sap sticking fingers. Praise Kraft mac and cheese, small miracle of powdered cheddar. Pork floss in the big Tupperware, Sarah Lee. Praise soy sauce and rice, shrimp cup noodles 3 minutes till done. Praise the soft insides of baguettes, the first star, pocked and sliced to Chef Boyardee, to durian, sweet scent of garbage, to pickled mustard greens, lean cuisines, pizza bagels after school, praise women, infants and children, banana blossoms, heart thinly sliced in vinegar, drained of all colour. I had a go at writing my own poem in response to that. And I'm going to read that as well, just to show you that there are different things we can do with using the form of someone else's writing. So I've taken the first word of the poem, praise, and then I've gone off in my own direction. And I would invite you to do something similar. Take the first word, but also this poem speaks a lot to me about the senses, and it speaks a lot to me about metaphor. Like food in this poem, to me, food is not food. So this is my version in response. Praise me. Oh, strong arms, kind eyes, praise me, the present buyer, writer of words. Praise my small life, precious, my big heart. Praise each seed I plant. Praise the plants that live and those that go to compost. Praise glasses and earrings and the sweet smell of lavender. Praise books. Praise the hands that hold them. Praise all who I love. Praise teacups and small joys. Praise chocolate. And I'd like to, again, it's always an invitation, just to think about writing an ode to yourself. It can be one line. It can be more than one line. It can be about you and about the things that you love. Obviously, chocolate found its way. Chocolate and teacups found their way into my poem because they're things that are great for me. So this poem can be about you, about your strengths. It can be about the things that you love. If it's hard to find a way in, again, there's that list of strengths on the website. But also you might want to think about things that you do well, and they can often be verbs. So I had the present buyer. So the buyer was my verb, writer was my verb, and then adding a noun into that sentence. So the present buyer, the writer of words. So writing lists of nouns and verbs that you associate with yourself can be a good way to start. So yes, I'm going to invite you now just to have a go at writing an ode to yourself, or writing lists of nouns and verbs and adjectives that might help you write an ode to yourself at some later date. And again, if this is too hard, carry on with a previous activity, or just listen to what's going on inside you. So I'm just going to go to the chat to see if there's anything that people are asking. But yeah, think about making the first word praise, and we'll just have 3 minutes to do this. Actually, I'll give you, I think we've got time to have 5. So we'll have 5 minutes until past. And again, any questions or thoughts or any writing you want to share, please feel free to pop that in the chat. I'll put the poem in as well, in case anybody wants to have another look at it. Is there anything about the format of it that works for you? All right, just going to put that in. I'm also going to share some other poems in the chat that I really love, just in case they might speak to you more than this one does. And these are quite well-known poems. One of them is one that really supported me a lot when I was going through my childlessness journey. It made a really big difference to me, and it's always been a favourite, so that's why I've included that one. So feel free to use any of these if they speak more to you than the ode to hunger. You might also have a favourite poem that you'd like to include, that you'd like to use as your inspiration. I'm really pleased that someone's got caught up with a previous prompt and has used that instead of the one I gave. That's lovely, because this workshop's for you. I've noticed that someone's put a question in the Q&A, which is brilliant, and I will come to these, but please feel free to pop any more questions in the Q&A about literally anything that you'd like to know about me, about my writing, about writing in general, anything at all. I'll do my best to answer them. We've got 1 more minute with this ode to oneself. And as I say, if you've written a list of adjectives, nouns, and verbs, that's a brilliant place to start. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap that one up. And we're going to move on to another prompt. And again, I've shared a link in the chat. And I'm going to talk about the fact that it can be really easy in our busy lives to find the time or the inspiration to write. So I'm going to suggest, oh, someone's put something in the chat. Thank you so much. That's absolutely lovely. So I'm going to suggest a couple of prompts from a book called The Book of Alchemy by Salika Jaoud. Elizabeth Gilbert described this book by saying, "The Book of Alchemy proves on every page that a creative response can be found in every moment of life, regardless of what is happening in the world." So there's two prompts from this book that I'm going to share with you. And it's about finding writing in the everyday. So the first is to cast your mind back over the last 24 hours and to write down up to 10 images that come to mind. Then for each image, expand your description in whatever way feels right for you. So this is one of the images that I've had in the last 24 hours. My tiny cat, her eyes closing, opening, closing again, as she fought sleep, as I stroked her fur, wet from rain. So the first stage of this one is to write a list of up to as many images as you can find, really, but up to 10 images from the last 24 hours. The second prompt, which is from a writer called Hanif Abdirakib, is to ask yourself the following questions. What do you need in order to live well today? Make sure the answer is concrete and within reach. And then the second question is, what has kept you or is keeping you from what you need? I'm going to go back to sharing my screen so that you can see those two prompts. But again, any questions, anything that comes up, just let me know. So these are the two prompts. And I think for this, I'm just going to give another 5 minutes to have a go at either one of these prompts or to go back to one of the exercises from before that you'd like a bit more time for. So we're going to go until 22 minutes past. There are a couple of minutes left. And the writing's still coming in. It's so lovely to read. But yeah, a couple of minutes left. Just to finish off, thinking about those 2 prompts from the Book of Alchemy. There's some really striking words going into the chat. I'm really grateful for reading those, but I'm also grateful for all of you who are writing and not sharing it in the chat. That's equally valuable. So thank you. So just finishing off the sentence or the section that you're writing at the moment, we're just coming into the last 10 minutes of our workshop today. It's gone really fast, much faster than I thought it would, probably because I'm really loving sharing these exercises with you, being part of this space with you and reading these words. It's absolutely lovely. So we're going to return to our warm-ups in the last part. Otherwise, oh, someone's just said they're writing by hand today. That's brilliant. As I say, feel free to share any writing with me by email after the workshop, and I will share my email address later. So I'm going to invite you now to come back to our 2 warm-ups. So the warm-up was describing your writing self as a plant in any stage of growth, or those 3 things that I asked you to list: the animal or mythical being, an object, and a colour. So what I'd like you to think about now is one of those warm-ups, and just to take it on to the next stage. So if you are describing, or if you feel like you're wanting to think more about your writing self as if it were the stages in the growth of a plant, then I'd like you to write where you think you are now after this workshop, if that's changed at all. The other thing I'd like to invite you to do is to, with your list, the animal or the mythical being, the colour or the object, is just to visualise that in a place. In your mind's eye, see that animal holding the object of the colour that you described in a place. And see them in that place in your mind's eye, and just write a description of them in that place. And the reason I'm asking you to do that is because I'm inviting you to see that being, that creature, as your writing guide, your writing teacher, or your writing supporter. And I've got my writing supporter, which I'm just going to show you. So this is my purple dragon writing supporter, and you can't see the object, but inside this purple dragon is a rose quartz heart. So this is my writing mentor, my writing guide, and this dragon sits on my desk when I'm writing and inspires me to keep going, because writing can sometimes be a frustrating and stressful process, particularly when you get near the end of a novel and you're having to edit it. So that's my writing mentor. So there's 2 different things you can do now. Go back to yourself in a stage of growth and write where you are now, if that's changed during this workshop, or think about your writing mentor, your writing guide. And I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to do this, and then we're going to move on to some questions and wrapping this workshop up with thinking about next steps. Oh, thank you. Someone's posted that they love my purple dragon. I love my purple dragon. I couldn't believe it when I saw this purple dragon, having already had an image of that being my writing mentor, and then I found it in a shop, and I just could not believe it. It was wonderful. So yeah, just a couple of minutes now until 27 minutes past to write anything at all. And what I'm going to invite you to do as part of this is to share one line of anything that you've written today in the chat. It could be your favourite line, a line you'd like to develop, but just to share one line. And if you're okay with me to read that line out, to share the line and write the word yes. But if you don't want me to read it out, to share the line and write the word no. And then I'll know. So yeah, one line of your writing in the chat would be lovely. And you could also write anything in this workshop that you've enjoyed or has struck you or you might take from it. But yes, if you're writing a line, please remember to put yes at the end if you're happy for me to read it out, and either write no or nothing if you don't want me to read it out. So just while you're finishing off, I'm going to read out some of the lines that people have shared in the chat that they're happy for me to read aloud. Praise me, I am alive. Looking for others to say meow, but scared that it will get mistaken for a cow. Praise me, my purpose, my passion, my life. I don't like to go with the status quo, but what my heart feels in all things. I am unique, and there's only one me which I embrace today. Praise kimchi, sour and spicy with the addictive taste. Praise bulgogi, subtle sweetness with dark soy sauce. Actually, I think that was something that someone didn't want me to share because it didn't have a yes after it. So sorry about that. I thought it did. Apologies for reading something that didn't have a yes. This determined gardener, persistent, resilient. My writing self is like a flower I saw this morning as I walked.